Do you feel alone? Do you, whether you're talking with somebody, hugging them, kissing them, fucking them, or even looking directly into their eyes, feel like you're still alone? Have you spent your life trying?
I got a pretty big night ahead of me. I've got to pick up my girlfriend from work around 8 a.m., but I just can't sleep, and I'm sick of being at home. Vertigo hasn't been super bad lately, though, so I kind of figured I'd just drive around for the rest of the night, sort of clear my head and wait for her to get off. But there's a reason I'm in this particular parking spot. A little over a year ago, I had an affair. This might sound like the introduction to an apology video, but it really isn't. This is a video about how I got my soul back. This is a video about how I rebuilt myself after nearly losing everything. This is a video about every single one of my friends coming to hate me and how they slowly came to trust me again. This is a video about hating myself, and this is a video about loving myself. This is a video about how I used to be evil, but became good again. This is a video about honesty. For years now, I've prided myself on my communication skills and my willingness to say anything about my life on this channel. I'm an open book, and I always have been. But there was a caveat to that. For my entire life, I was a strong believer in the idea of what they don't know won't hurt them. I was of the opinion that lying to people was okay if it spared someone some pain. This perspective created a wall between myself and everyone else in the world. A lead head that my brain was always going to be isolated within. Nobody could get in, and nothing real could get out. I was permanently divided from everyone else, all alone in my head, holding on to my secrets as the sole protector of these ugly, heartbreaking truths about a person that the people in my life cared a lot about. Weirdly enough, before the affair showed me just how dangerous this perspective was, it was something that I took pride in. I was burdening myself with secrets in order to protect the people who cared about me. I was fully intent on carrying that particular secret to the grave. After we called it off, myself and the girl I was secretly involved with, let's call her Ashley, were deleting messages for hours, discussing all these plans for how we'd keep what we did a secret. We would never speak of this again. Well, one day I broke down. See, the issue with designing my entire life philosophy on the fact that nobody would ever be able to bridge the gap I created between my mind and theirs is that eventually someone does find a way to genuinely connect with you in a way that you didn't think could ever be possible. If you spend your entire life building a wall around yourself, the idea that someone else could ever tear it down doesn't even occur to you until it's already happened. This is what happened with my girlfriend and I. I was, and still am, deeply in love with her. That never stopped being the case over the entire duration of the affair. You might be wondering how that could possibly be true. I'll be examining that particular mystery later, but at the time, the fact of the matter was that I was being dishonest to the person I was in love with. The person who, to this day, I cannot even conceptualize a future without. The person who I know I'm going to marry and die with. Her and I were picking up Ashley from work after driving around all day, looking at the different apartments that we'd seen online. And something hit me. Something happened that had never happened to me before. I thought to myself, I respect this person too much to let her sign another lease with me before she knows the truth, before she knows what I'm capable of. She was fully intent on spending her whole life with me, but she had no idea that I could do something like this. Like I said, the affair had already been called off at the time, and both of us were intent on keeping that secret to the grave, but, well, my girlfriend tore down the wall. I cared about her too much to keep up the act. While we were waiting for Ashley to clock out and get in the car, parked in this exact parking spot, as a matter of fact, I told my girlfriend what we had done. Naturally, she broke down. All of her worst fears had been realized. Her girlfriend and one of her best friends had been completely disregarding her mental health and conspiring to just keep her in the dark about what we were capable of. And she only found out because of what must have appeared to her to just be a fluke in my programming. When Ashley got in the car and found out that I'd let our secret leak, she was furious with me. So I drove the two of them home feeling lonelier than I'd ever felt before, and knowing that I deserved that much loneliness and more. I did my best to answer all my girlfriend's questions honestly, but I just couldn't. I wasn't a strong enough person to be completely honest with her, and so I kept a lot of details hidden. To be honest, I thought I was finally doing the right thing, but only telling her half of the truth feels like the most selfish thing that I've ever done. She had her reality shattered, and I got to feel like I was finally being honest, all without worrying about committing fully to honesty. I just plain didn't learn my lesson. I thought that I could go right back to keeping secrets. This would be around the time that I started work on that Disco Elysium video you saw in the beginning. All about how being completely honest, open, and communicating with people without compromise seemed like a fantasy that the laws of physics could never abide, and how the filter of language would always dilute any thought or feeling I had to the point of not being perfectly pure or accurate. Go figure. Well, over the next couple of months, it seemed very clear to me that Ashley couldn't keep living with us. My relationship would never be able to heal from this if she was around. And what I now know was a lie, a bid to keep me from hating her. Ashley told me that she didn't regret what we did. Ironically enough, hearing that is what made me hate her. Regret had become the focal point of my existence, but there she was, telling me in private that she didn't regret it. I didn't realize that she was lying to me until much later, and that she did regret it, but that was the final straw. My girlfriend said she would be okay with it if Ashley kept living with us, but she told me it was my choice in the end. I kicked her out, and when my girlfriend and I couldn't find an apartment of our own, and our landlord raised the rent past what two people could afford on our own, we lost the apartment and had to move back in with my parents. That's why I said in the Minecraft video that losing the apartment was, in some small butterfly effect way, my fault. Though my girlfriend insists that it isn't. In that video, I talked about escaping the harsh reality of losing our home by starting a Minecraft world with my girlfriend. What I failed to mention to you all was that all of this, the affair, was the other thing that her and I were trying to dissociate away from thinking about. I hated myself. In some small way, I'm sure my girlfriend hated me too, though she would never say it. But the two of us didn't hate Minecraft. As much as we tried to just forget about it and move on, it wouldn't be possible. Around the time we moved out, I had internalized that there was only one way for me to handle this if I ever wanted my girlfriend to feel safe and comfortable around me again. I decided that I had to commit fully to this. Penance would need to become the focal point of my existence. I would need to spend months and months and months letting any decent mood I managed to get myself into be instantly shattered by my girlfriend asking me another question about what happened, or reminding me that she thought she'd never be able to trust me again. I felt like I needed to just swallow my pride and say over and over and over again, "You have every right to hate me. You'd be in the right to break up with me. I'm sure our friends would be okay with you living with them." All while her leaving me and moving in with those three, particularly Ashley, was my greatest fear. That was something that I genuinely didn't know if I would survive or not. But in my mind, I had to say things like that to her for practically months, every single day, because, well, it was true. She would be in the right to leave me. And I hated the idea of her staying with me just because she had nowhere else to go. I hated the idea of her staying with me just because she had nowhere else to go. Therein lies a way of thinking that I didn't realize at the time was the backbone of so much of what I had done wrong. I disregarded our personal agency. I was convinced that the only reason she would ever decide to stay with me was because I must have manipulated her in some way without realizing it. I felt bad for her because she was in love with me, a duplicitous whore. In fact, it was a similar removal of agency that kind of led to the affair in the first place. Part of the way that my girlfriend's brain works is that she has these really huge upswings and downswings where she's incredibly depressed or incredibly optimistic. She would tell you as much herself. They can happen multiple times a day or last months. She was in one of her longest downswings since I've known her when the affair started, and let me tell you what was going through my head at the time. Every day, she's just so down and depressed, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get her out of it. I started to feel like our relationship was hopeless. Like, no matter how much I loved her, it was nothing that I said mattered anymore. That's why I say that I never stopped loving her, even during the affair. All I wanted was to feel like I could fix her depression, but it felt like nothing I did would ever be able to do that. That all stems from the fact that having genuine respect for someone's agency was such a foreign concept to me back then. And then Ashley comes along and she's hanging on my every word. The things I do had a huge impact on how Ashley felt, and so after I'd practically given up on improving my girlfriend's mood, I started to take comfort in the person who I felt like I could have an impact on. And one thing led to another. There were, of course, other factors, like my problematic libido and my whole what they don't know won't hurt them philosophy that I talked about earlier, but feeling like nothing I did could fix the issues we were having was one of the roots of the whole thing. At least, that's how it felt at the time. The thing is, just like how I felt I must have manipulated my girlfriend in some way for her to stay with me, just as I felt she was a victim of her love for me, this was just me removing her agency in a different way. It was stupid and even controlling of me to feel like, as her girlfriend, it's my job to cure her depression. Like, anytime she's in a bad mood, it's my job to fix it. I can be there for her, but I can't control her emotions, and I shouldn't try to. That is controlling and manipulative. Well, at the time, I thought that trying to control her emotions and talk her out of being depressed was more important than just being there for her. In practical terms, I thought I could just buy her enough treats and gifts and explain to her in clear terms why everything was going to be okay and that she would just snap out of depression. And I thought that trying to do that would be the affirmative action that a good girlfriend would take, when really all a good girlfriend would do in that situation was hug her and tell her that she'd always be there for her. That was one of the fallacies that led to the affair, and now, months later, I was making the same mistake again, feeling like the only way I could rationalize her decision to stay with me was by thinking of her as a victim of her love for me, like staying with me wasn't even a decision that she chose to make. Well, on one particularly bad night, I went to talk to an adult who's always been a super prominent figure in my life, and I told them about everything. That night, and I may have misunderstood him, but that night he seemed to imply that he had cheated on his wife back when I was a kid. Instantly, I could pinpoint when this must have happened. He had work that took him far enough away that he had to get a hotel every weekend for a little bit, and he had run into a lot of money, so he was just showering his entire family in gifts every single time he got home from these weekend trips. If I understood right, and he did in fact have an affair, then that has to be when it happened. They even took a great big trip to Amsterdam shortly after. The reason that I bring it up is because I have always considered the wife in that marriage to be a very repressed woman and the husband to be a very pussy-whipped man. No matter how unreasonable she was being, he would always defend her. No matter how hard he tries to do these great big gestures for their anniversaries or for Valentine's Day or whatever, she would always be passive-aggressive about it. I never understood what the problem was. Maybe she was just the worst. To be honest, that was always my assumption of her, but learning that he had had an affair, suddenly it all made sense. He got caught, or broke down and told her like I did, and 18 years later, he was still removing her agency and her decision to stay with him. He probably felt like their kids were stopping her from leaving him. He probably still feels that way now. Well, as it turns out, 18 years of self-flagellation didn't get her to forgive him, and it didn't get her to forget. God, even if she did decide to stay with me for that long, 18 years, our relationship turning out like theirs became just my new biggest fear. I spent a lot of time in my life watching him try so hard to make her happy, all while never being supportive enough when she was sad. I saw so many times how she would treat him like shit, and he would let it happen because he thought that he lost the right to ever defend himself to her again when he cheated. One thing was clear. These two never really talked about it. The truth got out, and I guess they just did their best to bury it, probably for the sake of their kids. And to this day, 18 years later, it's never been resolved, and you can see that pain in every single interaction that they have. Well, Ashley was really conflicted. On one hand, she was dead set on keeping the rest of our secrets. After all, she'd get in trouble for it too, but on the other hand, she really hated lying to my girlfriend, and she was really hurt by me cutting her out of my life, and just furious with me to boot. Whatever it was that pushed her over the edge, one night she broke down and told my girlfriend the rest of the truth. All the things that I was too much of a coward to tell my girlfriend when I initially told her that there was an affair were out there now. Her pain and distrust in me had been completely reset. She found out that I'd still been lying to her, and like that old man I was talking about a minute ago, all of that self-flagellation I had done, all of that penance, was for naught. What little progress her and I had made was all erased. The time for self-flagellation was over between me and my girlfriend. It was time to really talk about this. Even though the whole truth was out there now, and I was relieved to know that I didn't have to keep any secrets from her anymore, if we didn't have an open conversation about how and why all of these things happened, we would end up just like that old dysfunctional couple that I was so afraid of becoming. So, to try and make things better, I wound up creating a whole document. I laid out the exact timeline of everything that happened. I told her exactly why everything happened, at least to the best of my ability, and what was going through my head at the time. I didn't waste time punctuating my explanations with "I'm sorry's" or "I hate myself" or "you should leave me's." To be honest, at this point all of that stuff would have just been patronizing. The time for apologizing was just long gone. I owed it to her to just be clear and direct. I needed to treat her intelligence with respect and trust her when she said it was her choice to stay with me and to try and trust me again. We laid it all out, and when there was a memory I was fuzzy on or didn't remember the exact timeline of things, we consulted Ashley's diary that she had given my girlfriend, which detailed every encounter between the two of us. Yeah, I threw up a couple times as we discussed all of this, but we got it all out there. And as selfish as it feels to say, it felt like the weight of the world had been lifted off of my shoulders. It's worth saying that my conversation with that sad old man wasn't the only reason that I switched from self-flagellation to trying to accept that my girlfriend chose to stay with me, and that she should be an equal part in her healing process. She'd been telling me that very thing the whole time, and I'd been trying to adjust to it, but that conversation I had with him was a major affirmation that that was the right decision. Over the next few weeks, I slowly stopped feeling like I was playing a survival horror game. It didn't feel like I was disarming a bomb every single time I interacted with her. If I remembered a new detail, I just told her. If I felt like something she said was unfair and I should defend myself, I told her. Even the fear in the back of my mind that sex with multiple partners was just a part of who I was. I told her everything. Committing to that honesty as hard as I could, it actually took a lot of the pressure off of me. Yeah, the truth sucks ass, but it's the truth. Once I quit trying to circumvent it or dress it up, it felt like I couldn't really do any more wrong. I'd already done all the wrong. It wasn't pretty, but things finally started healing between us. You could feel a different, more healthy energy in the air. I stopped telling her over and over again that I hated myself and that she should hate me too, and I started respecting her intelligence and agency and saying, all right, maybe I'm the one who put us in this situation, but you want to solve it, and I want to solve it, so let's solve it together. None of this is to say that I instantly fixed everything in my behavior. Learning to go from what they don't know won't hurt them to I need to communicate every little thought I have because that's what it means to truly connect with someone was a bumpy ass road for me. There would be plenty of times I was sad about something or even wanted her to make another accommodation for me, and it felt like there's no way I can say that to her. And forcing myself to say it anyways was as painful as pulling teeth at first. It was so painful, in fact, that around New Year's I wrote a proper suicide note for the first and only time so far, addressed to Ashley. And then I wrote a parallel life note addressed to my girlfriend. I'm happy to say that the life note is the only one that ever reached its recipient. Like I said, it was a really bumpy road, but I was committed to becoming this new type of person. And this is where the story finally starts getting happy. See, there was one question that neither of us really had an answer to at the time. Several of the times that Ashley and I had hooked up, I was thinking to myself, God, I don't want this. But I couldn't stop myself. This is where the whole, I know you're puppy-brained, but you still know right from wrong thing came into play. I mentioned it in my Puppy Girl Psychoanalysis video. See, there's this need for affirmation that I've always used my sexual submissiveness to attain. That's initially why I got into doing sex work online. Discussing the affair and other situations from before me and her even knew each other, it was really clear that I had a super tough time saying no to people that I cared about. The question that neither of us could really answer was, why do I put myself in situations where I have to say no in the first place? Well, the answer is simpler than you might be thinking. It isn't some big complex that requires an entire video about the nature of puppy girls to analyze. The simple fact is that I've got an incredibly hyperactive libido. I really like flirting with people. I really like having sex with people. And the fact that I so desperately seek affirmation through my sexuality and my obedience was the dog bone-shaped bridge that connected the flirting to the having sex, which caused so many problems. As my girlfriend puts it, sex is one of the main things that I take comfort in, and as I put it, sex is how I affirm that the people in my life actually like me. It isn't always healthy for my self-esteem, but sex is a core part of who I am. Well, earlier I said something about how one of the hardest parts of this whole open and honest communication thing was when I had to tell her that there was another accommodation that I wanted. Well, in no discussion we've ever had was that difficulty made clearer than when I brought forward the idea of us having an open relationship. I had always thought of it as nothing but a compromise that she would be making for me. But later it became clear to me that this was something that she had been interested in trying out too. She'd actually brought up the idea beforehand, but I shrugged it off every time because it felt like it would just be this massive compromise on her end, and she would never actually be happy with it. More of me removing her agency. This time, though, we had a great, big, honest, and open discussion about it. I've spent my entire life surrounded by casual sex. It's just the lifestyle that I grew up in. From when I was like 15 onward, it was just a simple fact that sometimes you hook up with your friends, and that's just how friendships are. My girlfriend, on the other hand, always considered even something as simple as kissing to be this super intimate thing that should only ever happen between people who are in an actual relationship. Flirting was never as big of a deal. We've both always been massive flirts, but anything past that was a hard emotional boundary for her in her relationships. I don't know, nor do I really care which perspective is morally correct. To be honest, both of these viewpoints are totally valid and reasonable in my mind. I actually remember a really funny conversation her and I had where we were talking about our different perspectives on casual intimacy, and I realized that kiss the homies goodnight was just a joke. That was kind of just what you did in most of my friend groups over my life. Well, once it felt like we'd healed from so much of what I did, the open relationship discussion went on the table again. As near as I can tell, she thinks that my casual relationship with sex, if expressed in honest and open ways, is actually healthier than the super strict, intimate relationship that she had with sex, and she said that she was down to try it out. She asked if she could have the first hookup outside of our relationship, and let's be honest, that's only fair, and I thought so at the time too. As I wrote all of this down, it felt like there was supposed to be this thunderclap sound effect in the background, but, well, no. I think open relationships can be incredibly toxic, but goddammit, if you're as good at communication as my girlfriend and I had gotten over that season, I have to be honest, I think they're great. Ever since I was about 16, the first time I got myself into a really uncomfortable situation and felt unable to say no, I've been so incredibly afraid of my libido. I was convinced that it would just be this shadow hanging over me for my entire life that was going to get in the way of every relationship I'd ever have. That night, when we first discussed opening up the relationship, it was the first time that I ever felt like I could live comfortably with my libido. If it's fully disclosed, open, and honest, I don't need to be afraid of my temptations, and I don't even need to be afraid of acting on those temptations, so long as I do it the right way. So long as I let my girlfriend set the pace and the boundaries, I don't need to be afraid of hurting her anymore, and I don't need to feel horrible about myself every time I think that one of my friends is super hot. I was able to express this part of myself that I spent my entire adult life trying and failing to repress. As I said earlier, sex is a big part of my identity. Well, now it was a part of my identity that I didn't need to hide away anymore. While this video isn't supposed to be about how I went from having an incredibly toxic and evil affair to being in an honest and healthy open relationship, I think that the moment when we opened up our relationship was a really cool little milestone in how far we'd gotten and how much her trust in me and her comfort around sex in general had healed after months of just open and clear communication and honesty. Let's move on, though, with the clarification that my girlfriend has looked over every part of the script and knows that if she disagrees with or has a problem with anything I say here, she can tell me and I'll fix it. Hell, at this point, she has practically co-written this video with me, serving as both an artistic and a factual guide. And as long as I'm speaking candidly, I want to put it out there that nobody has forced me to make this video. This is a video that I've wanted to make for a really long time, and I've asked everyone involved over and over again if they're okay with me telling the story. I haven't gotten a single no or even a meh. So my girlfriend clearly wasn't the only person who was affected by what I did. Ashley hated herself just as much as I did, and she hated me just as much as I did her after everything went down. Then you've got the girl she moved in with after I kicked her out. Let's call her Lily. These two people used to be super close to me, some of my best friends. Now they were just super close to my girlfriend, but they hated me, and understandably so. My girlfriend would go over to hang out with them and drink at their apartment once a week, and every single time, they were just manifesting all of my fears, spending hours and hours and hours trying to convince her to leave me. Ironically, they were disregarding her agency and her decision to stay with me in just the same way that I had done before. All the while, she's just defending me to the ends of the earth to these people. Not telling them that what I did wasn't that bad or anything, but conveying to them how hard I was trying to change and saying that it wasn't fair for them to hold it over my head when she, the affected party, wasn't holding it over my head. I was an anxious mess every time she'd go over there, but in truth, every time she went over, she was just building Ashley and Lily up to the point where they'd be willing to try talking to me again. First, it was Lily. After a couple months, her and I wound up meeting again and talking about our feelings about what had happened, and we reached a touchy, tenuous friendship. Then, amazingly, because my girlfriend is just amazing, I managed to do the same thing with Ashley. This girl who completely hated me for everything, just as much as I had hated her. managed to talk it all out and become friends again. This policy of open and honest communication didn't just make it possible for me and my girlfriend to move on. It made it possible for us to fix 2 long dead friendships which I had given up on ever reviving. She kept telling me over and over and over again that she would eventually get us to all be friends again. And it took a long time for me to believe her on that. But that's what I was talking about in my video on Yakuza Infinite Wealth. As long as you're real with people, and I mean really, really real with them, you can get a second chance. You can get all the second... Sorry. You can get all the second chances you need, though. And as long as you've got that second chance, and like my girlfriend, you're willing to give people second chances, you've got infinite wealth. And my girlfriend is my own personal Kasuga Ichiban. Well, now the 4 of us live together, and along with the 5th one who recently moved in with us. These friendships were the reason that we were able to afford a new home to rent out. They're the found family that I kept talking about in my video on Ico, holding hands with a cute girl and escaping generational trauma, and my video about my vertigo, I'm a medical mystery. If you really want to look into it, you could say that my dishonesty lost us our home in the Minecraft video, and the honesty that my girlfriend had taught me how to have was what got us a new home in my Ico video. Well, that and her faith in Ashley and I. Ashley had, of course, been working just as hard as I was on becoming a better person. After all, she was part of the affair, too. My girlfriend gave her the same deal she gave me. If you commit to being a better person, I'll have faith in you. It's a deal I've actually stolen and extended to someone else in the friend group since then, because I was just so inspired by how accepting she was. What's funny is that now I, who was once the most secretive person, have kind of become the morality police for the whole household. My girlfriend and I are the ones who have been pushing everyone so hard to be upfront about everything they're feeling. I'm the one who's always saying, I know I'm the casual sex person, but you guys really shouldn't be having casual sex while you still don't know how each other feel about it. She's the one saying, you have to tell them how you feel. I'm the one saying that these people need to tell their secrets to each other, even when they know that it'll hurt them. The 2 of us are always, almost every single day, having big talks with these people about how we're not going to keep their secrets for them, and how they should just be telling the other person what's up. A lot of you would say that I don't deserve this. Maybe you're right. God knows I feel like just the luckiest person in the world. This is what I was talking about in Love, a video essay. Love is about knowing that there are things wrong with you and turning those negative feelings into positive ones by working on your problems together. Sure, maybe I don't deserve love, but I have it. And besides, love isn't about deserving things. You don't earn another person's love. She loves me, and that's her choice, and I've got to live up to it. Maybe all of this pushing people to be honest stuff looks hypocritical of me, but god damn it, I'd rather be a hypocrite than be wrong. And all of this hypocrisy is the reason that these people, this new family of mine, have come to trust me so deeply. It's the reason they let me tell them when I think they're messing up, and that they should be more honest with each other. It's the reason that they trust me when I say I'm having vertigo problems, and that I'll get around to doing my chores later once the sun goes down and it's less hot out. Hell, my crusading for open communication has even gone the other way every now and then. My girlfriend has had a fair share of problems every once in a while with feeling like she wasn't allowed to be in a bad mood. Like, her emotions were a problem. It's taken a lot of convincing from me to get her to open up about some of her own negative emotions when it comes to certain topics. Just as she did for me, I've had to push her here and there for her to open up about a lot of things and get comfortable talking about her feelings. And just as I experienced, the proposal of totally open communication has made us both feel so much more secure in the relationship. I gotta go pick her up, but speaking of proposals, one thing that I absolutely cannot relate to anymore is the old cliche of somebody deciding that they want to marry somebody and then keeping that a secret for multiple months while they save up for a ring and plan out the perfect way to propose to them. It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand being able to keep something that huge from somebody. I'm going to drive to her work. I'll get back to you in just a minute. The five of us were sitting on the porch. They were all drinking, but I was sober as always when I looked up at my girlfriend and realized I'm ready for this. The communication and trust between us was all I really needed in order to know that we weren't going to end up like that old couple I talked about earlier. I didn't have a ring or a big fancy plan, but I proposed to her, and she said yes. We'll be getting married in a few months. This woman who taught me to be honest and taught me that what they don't know can still hurt them, and taught me that there's a doorway in my wall, an opening in my lead head, is my fiance now. And it all stemmed from yet another little feeling that I couldn't keep secret for more than a little bit, more than 10 seconds. And you know what? After watching through this whole series, you might all say that I have a really strange way of expressing myself, but god damn it, I express myself. Yeah, babe. Have a good night at work. Okay, sorry y'all, the hurricane is kind of popping off here, and so I have to get this recorded as soon as possible. I didn't even have time to clean my room, but I need to get this video live before the power goes out, or something. Obviously, this is one I've had a lot of emotional investment in for a very long time. Hopefully you stuck to the end, and hopefully you don't hate me. But that's the story. If you haven't gone and watched the entire playlist, I'd appreciate it if you did. That's really all I can say about that. I think this video was kind of written with the presumption that the viewer has seen the whole playlist, although of course it's not. You know, it stands on its own regardless. I gotta get this thing rendered though. I would kind of love to talk to you more about how much of a massive emotional toll the editing process of this video is taken on me, and the writing and all that. This is the most horrified I've ever been to make a video, and I've kind of been a mess ever since I started to work on it. Like, a real mess. Thanks to my girlfriend for helping me get through it and assuring me that I was doing the right thing and that this was a story that deserved to be told. There were some people asking if this was fiction because of the way that I phrased the Discord notification about this playlist. No, none of this is fiction. I don't lie on this channel. This is what my life has been for about a year now. But with that out of the way, I'd like to go ahead and verbally thank the patrons, especially those who donate $10 or more monthly, such as Thea Westfall, Autumn Hawk, Ion Luster, River Moon, Marcy, Neo Lunatics, Chase Cares, Olive, Agatha Sorceress, Rogue Planet, Lovely Lila, Huntakar, Catalina Akadre, Vivian Ling, Clover Blake, I Eat Teeth, Orange Remake, Vid B, Cinema Critic, Edelsis, Bree, Stephanie Starfire, Scott Edwards, Pumpkin, David Burrell, Alex, Issa, One-Eyed Wiley, Maddie Doman, Metamaniac, All Hail Eris, Ave Lunam, Babylon Broken, The Narcissist Cookbook, SEO Batoon, Spooky Ina, Guybrush, Lynn Payne, Mcoy, Hazel Pup, Lake, Eva Knight, Mr. Cocaco, Gwen T, Shay Theus, Nomad Delilah Jester, Bjorb, Lily Leones, Neris, Fia, Sean Hamilton, Haunted Mystic, Charlotte, Rio, Laura M, Atheist, Sylvan Pasco, Joannis, Vega Nelson, Demise, Mia Maple, Nicole, George Rosenbaum, Neurofilter, The Coombe Slayer, Summer Celine Garnet Midnight, Darius Fazier, Yarrow 12, Big Time Jim, Almost Dead Again, Gab, David Kaiser, Erica, Cortisol, Kay, Aider, Boya, and CeeLo. Again, sorry, I didn't get time to clean my room or anything. They're calling for, like, almost as high as 50 miles an hour winds is going to be the peak. I'm very scared, very tired. Gotta keep my family safe. And I gotta get this video rendered. So we'll see you all on the next one. I'm gonna try and have another video up soon, but hey, for all I know, there could be evacuee teams coming for me, on a search and rescue in a few days. We'll see. Probably not gonna be that bad, but wish me luck regardless. I love you all. Thank you for giving me the platform to tell stories like this. I think, as scared as I was to put this video up, forgive my ego when I say I think that this is an important one. I'll see y'all again soon. Thanks for sticking with me.